Thank you very much. Before we start, this week there's been another Arab Muslim psychologist in the news. Unfortunately, in Fort Hood, Texas, earlier this week, 12 lives were taken and 28 lives were injured in a shooting. Very unfortunate. So I want to start with just a few seconds of silence, honoring the deaths. Honoring the memory of the people who passed away. The job becomes tougher and tougher. Anyway, I can't talk about the 99 before talking to you about my life. I'm an Arab Muslim, born and raised in Kuwait, got sent to a Jewish summer camp in New Hampshire by my parents who didn't know better. They sent me to a camp called Camp Robin Hood. By the time I figured it out 7 years into it, I asked them, I said, could you have at least called the Camp Robin Hood? At least then my parents would have had some kind of indication, but clearly that wasn't in the cards. This is pre-internet, pre-satellite TV Kuwait, where I was there. The kids, you could tell from my height and weight now what I must look like when I was 8. I was like a box. And the kids would make me point up to the sky and say, boss, boss, the plane, the plane. I had no idea what that was until years later. Had one of the most positive experiences of my life there for 10 years. My boys now go there. I'm the father of 5 children. I have 3 boys. My wife has a boy and a girl from previous marriage. We have 2 together. I've considered changing our name from Al-Mutawa to Algebra to make up for that, but we haven't made that transition quite yet. All our kids are born in New York, all New Yorkers. I'm one of those people that has every time we go through the airport, I always get randomly checked. Every time. I just spoke at PopTech in Maine 2 weeks ago in Camden. Beautiful place, amazing conference, and on the way back to New York, it wasn't even immigration. They saw the documents that didn't know what to do with them. The guy was looking at them. They were very nice, but the guy was looking at them, and I said, "Is there a problem? Have you not seen one of these before?" I'm from Kuwait. My wife's from Saudi. He said, "No." I said, "Okay. Would you prefer some other documentation?" He goes, "No, this is okay. We're just calling somebody who knows better." The guy that knows better was very nice. He looked at them and he had this thing that looked like he was looking at diamond, looking at the passport. and I said, "It's a 5-carat passport." And he said, "No." He said, I know what I'm doing here. My best friend's parents lived in Saudi when he was growing up." I said, "And so I know about all your papers." I said, "Okay, that's good. I'm from Kuwait though, but whatever." So, the 99. I'm a clinical psychologist by training. I'm licensed here in New York State. I trained at Bellevue Hospital, which is where I learned how to pace. And I spent a couple years working at the Survivors of Political Torture program at Bellevue. My patients, because I speak Arabic, came out of Arab prisons. A couple of my patients were part of the army that invaded my country in 1990. But there are people there from all over the world. We do not have a monopoly on how not to treat fellow human beings. But I didn't speak the other languages. Did that for 2 years and needed a break. So I went to business school, went to Columbia Business School for a couple of years. And it was a time, everybody there was either a banker or a lawyer by background, and so they understood finance. I did not. And so my reaction to Finance 101, everybody else called it baby finance. I said, this thing grows up, So, out of business school, I had done my doctorate, I had done 3 master's degrees, I was 32, didn't know what I was going to be when I grew up. I was in a cab with my mother and my sister going from Edgware Road in London to Harrods, which is a pilgrimage every Kuwaiti must make at least once in their life. And on that trip, my sister turned to me and said, "Naif, do you remember you told me that after school you'd go back to writing and I'd illustrate?" I promised her that. I don't know what I was thinking. But I used to write earlier, and I got stopped by Ministry of Information. One of my books got stopped, and I quit writing because I could do The Angry Young Man. I couldn't do The Starving Artist. So I quit writing for 5 years, went to graduate school, and then I was now ready to do something with all these. And I didn't know what I was going to. But the last thing on my mind was doing anything for kids, because that's crazy, right? And so she said, "What do you think?" I said, "Samar," I just wanted to shut her up. I was not in the mood to deal with that. I said, "Samar, for me to do something now, it has to have the potential of Pokemon. Otherwise, it just does not make sense." So she shut up. And there was a vacuum in the cab ride, and I started free associating as any good psychologist trained in New York City would. So my next thought was that Pokemon had been banned in some countries. There was a fatwa against it. My next thought was, my God, what has happened to Islam? And who are these people making these random decisions for my children? My next thought was of Allah or God and how disappointed He must be. My next thought was that Allah had 99 attributes. And ironically, it brought me full circle back to Pokemon, a concept of a few hundred attributes. So by the end of that cab ride, I had the very beginnings of the idea. I got out at Harrods, I turned to my sister, I said, what do you think of this? She liked it, and I ran. Within a few months, I'd done the business plan, wrote what everywhere else in the world would be called a character Bible. We called it a character guide. You got to pick your battles, right? And I developed a pitch for investors, and the pitch was this. I said, if you look at the superheroes that exist in the world today, you have two groups. You have the group that comes out of North America and the group that comes out of Japan. That's 6 years ago. The ones from North America are all based on a Judeo-Christian archetype. Like the prophets, all the superheroes miss parents, right? Superman's parents die in Krypton. Batman's parents die when he's 6. Spider-Man's raised by his aunt and uncle. Coincidence, I'm sure, right? And all of them, like the prophets, have a message delivered from above through a messenger. Right? The prophets get it from God through Gabriel, but Peter Parker is taking a photograph, a few blocks from here, and the spider comes in from above and gives him his message through a bite. Superman not only gets it from another planet, but his parents sent him to Earth very much like Moses in a pod on the Nile, right? And then you hear the voice of Jor-El speaking to Earth saying what? Saying, I have sent to you my only son. Right? That's God in the Bible. So the idea was this. The idea is I would go back into Islamic archetypes and mine stuff and build positive content and go to the heart of where other people were pulling out negative content and pull out positive content. I tell my investors now, the only person crazier than me was you. You gave me the money to do this, And so I had closed for my first round of financing, had raised $7 million within a few months from 54 investors in 8 countries. $1 million came from my classmates in business school, which is why I have investors from the US and China and Mexico and Lebanon and Jordan and Saudi. And I tell people, so I'm the only Kuwaiti that went to Beirut and actually came out with money. That's for some reason, no matter where I say that in the world, everybody gets that, There's one cross-cultural understood thing. So this is the first iteration of the business plan done at the now closed Howard Johnson's in Times Square. Basically the vision was, what I told the investors was, this could not be another made in fifth world country production. This was going to be Superman, or wasn't worth my time or their money. Okay? And so these are serious people, 5 investment banks from Kuwait, a commercial bank, the largest retailer, and different high net worth individuals. So from the very beginning, if you think you've done anything difficult in your life, imagine yourself coming to New York City 2 years after 9/11 and telling people, I want to build an Islam-inspired superheroes. Will you work with me? So it was a tough sell, but it was sold. And I got some of the top people involved, people who were involved with X-Men. My writer in year 1 is the writer from X-Men, Fabian Nicieza. In year 2 is the present writer of Iron Man. The people doing the illustrations are the same people who do Batman and Superman, all top tier stuff. And we entered Western consciousness in 2005 with a tagline, next Ramadan, the world will have new heroes. Okay? The concept was simple. Basically, it was 2003 when I came up with the idea. 2003 was the year of the fall of Baghdad. Not the first time Baghdad falls. There's a story that we know about growing up in my region of 1258 when the Mongols invaded Baghdad. They destroyed the most famous library at the time called Dar al-Hikmah Library. All the books were thrown in the Tigris River. The Tigris changes color with ink. Every kid in that part of the world knows it. That's what I used for the pivot. Okay? So in my version of the story, the Mongols invade Baghdad to destroy the library. That's the main intent of the invasion. But the librarians find out. And you want a best-selling comic? Make the librarians the heroes. Okay? Okay? So basically, the librarians get together an alchemical solution of king's water that, when mixed with 99 stones, will be able to save all that culture and history that's in the books. But the Mongols get there first. The books and the king's water get thrown in the Tigris. Some librarians escape, and over the course of days and weeks, they dip the stones into the Tigris and suck up all that information that we think is lost civilization. Now, the reality of the information on that book, so they're not Islamic information only, it's also Jewish information and Christian and Buddhist and Hindu, because the reality is that the caliph at the time, who set up the library in Ma'mun, who was Harun al-Rashid's son, had told the scholars, translate any book you can into the Arabic language, and I'll give you its weight in gold. After a while, the advisors complained. They said, Your Highness, the scholars are cheating. They're writing in big handwriting to get more gold. Right? And he said, let them be, because what they're giving our culture is worth a lot more than what we're giving them. Okay? So that's what powers the 99 in the story. So those stones are smuggled as 3 prayer beads of 33 stones each through Arabia into Andalusia and Spain, where they're safe for over 150 years. But in 1492, 2 important things happen. The first, this is that King Ferdinand and Queen Isabel take back Grenada, the last Muslim enclave in Europe. The second is they fund Columbus to find India, but he gets lost and finds this place. Right? So now we go back to my story now. 33 of the stones were smuggled onto the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria and spread in the New World. Okay? 33 are spread between Europe and Africa and Middle East, and 33 are spread between Asia, South Asia, and Southeast Asia. And now it's 2009, and there are 99 heroes from 99 different countries, all working together in teams of 3, depending on the situation at hand. So just a quick run through some of the characters. We have Dar, who's in the wheelchair. We have Hadia from Pakistan, Jabbar from Saudi, Mumita from Portugal, Noura from the Emirates, Wasi from India. Basically, their powers, Hadia is able to guide people, Jabbar can lift heavy stuff, Dar is able to give and take away pain. So you see kind of how they can interact together to create something. This is where you can work as hard as you can, but sometimes fate or dumb luck enters into the equation, and this time positively for us. I got interviewed. I went to the Arab Thought Foundation conference in Dubai early December 2005, and I'm actually speaking at the next one in Kuwait in December. It took 6 years and speaking all over the world, and I finally got invited to speak in my home country, but that's a different thing, okay? But I got interviewed. I found a reporter by the coffee. His name was Hassan Fattah. He's now a very good friend at the time. I didn't know him. He worked for the New York Times. I took him aside. I said, I have this idea. I pitched it to him, and he took me to his editor. He liked it. He said, okay, we're going to do a paragraph in the art section. You can't talk to anybody else. I said, okay. It was a big deal back then. I said, so a week passes, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, no article. I called him up. I said, Happy New Year. He said, thank you. We just had a baby. I said, congratulations. When's the article coming out? He said, next week. Of course, it doesn't come out then. And I figured the guy's name's probably not Hassan. He probably doesn't work for the New York Times. Just one of those stories where it's too polite to say no. And then the world erupts in the Danish cartoon controversy. And I start thinking, oh my God, I hope it doesn't come out. I hope this article doesn't come out. And the New York Times is not stupid, right? So next thing you know, it's a full page in the Sunday Times about the 99, and we didn't even have a product yet. And I was like, we held our breath. The next thing you knew, we got covered positively throughout the world in thousands of articles and newspapers over the past few years. So that you can't buy. That's just luck happening. It led to quite a few very, very, very amazing things early on. We've been able to sell rights. It's the first ever intellectual property from not just the Middle East, but from the Islamic world that's actually gone global. We have sold editions into the Arabic one we do into India, into Indonesia. We just did a deal in China. Anybody that tells you our content is religious, tell them we did a deal with the Chinese. Okay? When I first started raising money, people kept asking, did you talk to any scholars? And I'd avoid that question like the plague, because I knew if this scholar endorsed what I was doing, these guys were not going to endorse it because they didn't like him. I didn't want to get caught up in that. And so I'd avoid that question. If I get pushed, I say, well, I spoke to Emo Phillips. They say, Emo Phillips? We don't know Sheikh Phillips. I said, that's good because he's a comedian. So what do you mean? He said, well, Emo Phillips used to say that every night to the age of 10, he used to pray to God for a bicycle. And by 10, he realized that God didn't work that way. So he stole the bicycle and started praying for forgiveness. 6 months ago on Kuwait's Independence Day, we launched the first 99 Village theme park. Okay? So it's 300,000 square feet, 20 rides, all dedicated to the subject in the most conservative part of Kuwait. That has heroes on the walls from the US and Mexico and South America and China and so on and so forth, and India, all around. And kids, we've had more kids go through that and see and learn the concept and have read the magazine in the past few years in the Middle East. The 99 animation, just an amazing story. I dragged my heels forever on the animation deal. Endemol stepped up a couple years ago, and at that point I wasn't sure I wanted to do the deal because they were huge. Deal or no deal, Star Academy, Big Brother, they offered to finance and co-finance. They never financed anything they don't own before. But I dragged my feet because they'd never done animation. And so, I tell people, God sent me an angel, and that angel happened to be Jewish. There's a very big name in Hollywood that's been kind of my advisor behind the scenes, doesn't take a penny from me, but has advised me on pretty much everything. In fact, insulted me in public here in New York once when he saw an agreement that I was ready to sign, he looked at me and he said, I thought you said you went to business school. So, but this, some stuff becomes experience, but he basically told me, he said, hold off, I know about this, I knew they're gonna approach you, wait, there's news coming. And he let me know a few days before it actually happened that they had hired a new CEO who had run Fox Kids in Europe, who was part of the whole Power Rangers craze. He wanted to do this. So you had Endemol with a new CEO who was adopting the 99 Project as his personal baby, and that, they couldn't be in better hands. The scripts are all written in Hollywood by the names that write Ben 10 and Spider-Man and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and all top tier stuff, pre-post-production in the UK, production in Europe. Some amazing milestones we've been able to achieve, including awards from the World Economic Forum and the UN Alliance of Civilization I can't read that, it can't say anything, but I mean, lots of recognition, and beyond that, we've been able to, enter into public consciousness and kind of be involved in mainstreaming, the moderate voice of Islam. So one thing that, how do you know when you tell your investors that it's not going to be another made in fifth world country production? It's going to be Superman. How do you know when you've achieved that? You know that when after President Obama speaks in Cairo, a few weeks after that, DC Comics announces a crossover where Justice League of America, including Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, will be working with the 99 to make the world a better place in a global series published by DC Comics in 2010. So, thank you. So before I end, I have a question for you here. How many of you have read The Catcher in the Rye? How many of you have killed in the name of that book? You laugh. But in 1980, Mark David Chapman shot and killed John Lennon with a copy of that book in his hand. And during the interrogation told police the book drove him to kill. A year later, Hinckley tried to assassinate President Ronald Reagan. He too referred to the same book. So whose fault is that? Is it the book or the deranged lunatic who went in and pulled out their own messages? Thank you very much.